line here.
What a putt from Anthony Barella. He ties the lead all square with Eagle McMahon through 13 holes. Likely being a drop-in for par, and he can close out his first ever major. Oh my goodness, final, what just happened on 16?
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 European Open.
Hello and welcome to coverage of the 2023 Finnish National Disc Golf Championships. We are excited to be bringing you this incredible coverage at Mukkula Disc Golf Course in Lahti, Finland. It's an incredible event at a blossoming country for disc golf with incredible talent. We are happy to be bringing you Round 1 Front 9 MPO feature card coverage brought to you by MDG Media. I'm Connor Wood, and the best person I could possibly have with me today, Elias Luukkonen.
Thank you, Connor. Same to you, and what is up, viewers? As we take a look at which players have we got today. Väinö Mäkelä, one of the best players in Finland, also a former Finnish champion from 2021.
You touched on Finnish champions. We see our reigning, defending Finnish champion Niklas Anttila having some breakout performances this year. Very strong pace that he's setting at all the tournaments he's performing at, and happy to have him defending his title on this card.
And a local, Mikael Häme. Very consistent player, both on the backhand and forehand side. I believe he was the points leader from last year on the EPT, and this year also second. Very consistent, good player, always performs his best on the highest level.
And rounding out our feature card, Teemu Lampainen. He was in fact second place runner-up at last year's Finnish Nationals, has shown he has all the skills to perform on the big stage, and a great addition to our feature card.
Yeah, and Teemu has always done very well in the Finnish Nationals. I believe all of the Finnish Nationals he's played have been well above his current rating. So a very exciting player. And we're starting on a pretty simple hole. Hole 1 is only 84 meters, playing even slightly downhill, but what makes this hole really tricky to park and tricky to stay in bounds are these last two trees on the left. Players are trying to swing a big hyzer with a slow disc, preferably an overstable approach or a mid-range. Hopefully keep it wide enough not to go OB left. Also very easy to go long on this one, you need to throw it pretty soft.
Nousevan tai käden ylös. Tämä tarkoittaa, että olette ehdottoman hiljaa, eli annetaan pelaajille mahdollisuus keskittyä suoritukseensa. Suomen mestari vuosimallia 2021, Väinö Mäkelä.
We'll have Väinö to get us started. A lot of these players looking to use some overstability to control the distance, as well as get strong leftwards movement.
You can see Väinö actually going with an A2 here. That's a pretty conservative but a good shot. It's difficult to get much closer than that without risking those trees.
Niklas, Anttila.
And this hole is actually playing as an island. So if you go OB off the tee, you have to go to a drop zone that is still within putting distance. You have about a 12-meter putt from there. You can see it in the picture on the bottom left.
Niklas with a similar line to Väinö, getting a little bit more ground play, finds himself just a touch closer, well within putting range.
Mikael, Häme.
It's also one of the trickier basket placements on the course, as the basket is only about 6 meters from the OB left. You can see Mikael here also playing a pretty safe shot, outside the circle on the right.
And giving himself a longer putt towards OB with the slightly elevated basket could potentially be bringing that into play. We see Teemu now. Considerably more height. Throwing a justice here. He does contend with those trees that you touched on, Elias. As we see him filter through. Unsure how much he's left with now, but smiles and claps.
Teemu got a pretty fortunate break there to be in bounds. Quite often do you see people hit those trees and bounce OB. As Mikael a little bit hesitant on that first hole. As you talked about, the OB is very close and you can even lose your putter if you go OB to the creek.
Teemu with a great birdie putt to get us started here. Good break and translating that into a solid birdie. Väinö now from just within the circle, probably about 9. And fortunate to settle there off the cage. As you mentioned, do not want to be firing long.
And Niklas, good putt to start. He was close enough to go for that pitch putt there. And nobody really taking any huge trouble on this hole 1, which obviously is to be expected. It's one of the easier holes on the course, I'm sure. Tell me, Connor, how difficult was this hole playing?
Yeah, hole 1 averaged a 2.79, having 40% of the MPO field finding the birdie and 50% of our feature card finding the birdie, so playing just above the average there. But very attackable hole to get started.
And that is going to be a common theme for the first 5 holes on the course. The first 5 are really birdieable and the holes that you need to birdie if you want to have a great round. Continuing that on hole 2 here. Pretty short par 4. First shot needs to land before that OB line, so first shot is pretty much just a pitch up, whether it's a forehand hyzer or backhand hyzer. It's pretty much open. And from the short drive you have about 100 to an 85 meter hyzer, depending on how much you push the long OB line. I say hyzer because most players in the field are going for that overstable, either fairway or even some players going mid-range hyzer on the second shot.
We see Niklas playing his placement shot here. Good control of the speed to push as close as he can to the OB line while remaining very safe. I think a good blueprint here for the tee shot. We see Teemu now.
It's a pretty wide fairway here on the first. Not expecting any of these players to miss, and I'm sure they are also not expecting themselves to miss the fairway. This hole also, in theory, does offer a chance to go over the OB straight for the green, but it's playing into a headwind today, so nobody pretty much going for it.
And of course, the penalty for going for it and missing would be very little distance and throwing the third shot. I think the manageable birdie definitely looking more interesting than the very risky eagle chance. Mikael opting for the backhand hyzer here. Also very nice. You can see all of these players with a great touch and, as you mentioned, a generous landing zone, not needing to bite off too much distance and a lot of width to play with. This is really where the money's made now.
Yep. A pretty simple hyzer in a way, but you need to be accurate because the OB long and left comes into play pretty quickly. You can see there Mikael maybe a little bit hesitant of that long OB, even coming up a little bit short. And I believe Teemu is going with another justice here. Very long shot for an overstable mid-range.
And you see, as a result, coming up just a little bit shy, although I'm sure in his game plan he was able to execute with that disc, and very reliable disc choice, especially in the headwind, to ensure the angle integrity of the hyzer. We'll see Niklas now. This one has a little bit more speed out of the hand and a lot of width. We'll see what ground play he can find. He wanted a piece and he gets a piece. Short putt remaining for his birdie.
Yep, perfectly done there, and you can see Niklas got the width on the disc, which is important for opening up that angle to the green. Same for Väinö here, going around the first tree and pretty much to the edge of the bullseye. Well done there by both Niklas and Väinö on a hole that probably should be pretty easy as well for this level of players.
Oh, Teemu with a very good looking bid, and even he thought that was going in, I believe, just finding the bottom and bouncing out. Mikael as well, able to position himself for a chance as we now move to Niklas and Väinö's shorter putts.
Väinö here, just 4 meters, easy birdie for him. And before we forget, shout out to Pasi Koivu for making this challenging layout for the Finnish Nationals. Obviously the first 5 holes being some of the easier ones, but the challenge is going to kick in late in the round, I promise that. It's a great layout, and you can see it's going to challenge even the best of the players throughout the tournament.
And coming into this event, Elias, what sort of scores are these top-level players looking for or expecting to remain in contention and potentially on the lead card for round 2?
I believe a pretty good quote from Niklas from the press conference was that you can, in theory, shoot 10 under, but not really much more than that. There's a lot of really difficult birdies on the course. Anything near that 10 under mark, or even less, is probably going to be some of the hotter rounds of the day. As we move on to hole 3, another one of these very birdieable holes at the start of this course. This time a bit longer for par 3, 118 meters. It's just ever so slightly left to right playing shot shape. Most players either going with a hard thrown, slightly understable mid-range on the backhand, or a softer thrown, understable fairway. It's another one of these pretty scoreable holes, and everybody wants to at least have a putt on this one.
Niklas so far 2 through 2, looking to get his third here, although he comes out on the fade a little bit early and a little bit short on the distance, although very much within putting range, and a fine shot to give himself an open look from just outside circle 1. We'll see if Väinö has any opportunity for a wind read from Niklas's throw.
And talking about the wind, there was a pretty good tailwind for the majority of the day on this hole. So you can see Väinö here going mid-range, not quite turning enough, probably a little bit caused because of that tailwind, not allowing the disc to turn as much. And that is actually one of the worst spots that you can find on the hole. There's not a lot of tough positions, but Väinö might have to do some scrambling from there.
Teemu going with a lot more turn and height, a considerably more aggressive line. And even slightly overturned, although also giving himself an open look from circle 2 at the basket.
Yeah, not the greatest shots from the feature card so far. Let's see if Mikael can fix on that. Going with the unconventional forehand, that also plays pretty well, although the forehands tend to end up a little bit right of the basket. And you can see he was fading a bit right, but that's just short, and nobody gonna be in the circle on this pretty simple hole. Very surprising.
Tailwind also sometimes contributing to the disc dropping earlier than intended. A good pitch out from Väinö there to give himself a safe 3 from, as you mentioned, one of the most difficult spots, although looks like he had a reasonable opening. Mikael just doing the same.
The flag pretty much dead here. Looks like the feature card has a little bit less wind than the majority of the field. And Teemu has sailed over the basket. That's gonna be a scary, probably not as scary, but maybe a little nervy of a comebacker. And Niklas also taking a huge skip off the top of the basket. I believe he's actually outside the circle here, wow.
but you can rely on him to get that comebacker, securing his par here on hole 3. Great confidence in his putt, knowing that he can run it from that distance, and if he misses, has good chances for the comeback. Let's take another look.
Just a smooth stroke there. And you can see the slight left to right wind, even dropping the disc a little bit at the end. Perfect putt there. Teemu here, slight right left tailwind, and he has splashed out from the right. What a disappointing hole for Teemu here. Definitely not the hole you want to bogey.
Absolutely not. You mentioned the first 5 holes playing at least quite easy, all of them averaging under par. This one included hole 3 at 2.86, 28% of the field finding the birdie. Teemu, unfortunately, with the lone bogey of our feature card, very close on the putting green.
Next up, hole 4. Even a little bit shorter of a par 3 here, only 99 meters. Really the only real challenge on this hole is that OB on the left side actually creeping inside the circle, but other than that it's a pretty simple hole. You don't quite have the room on the right side to swing a full hyzer to this basket, but most players going straight with a little left finish at the end. Some people even going for a forehand to fade away from that left side OB. On this hole there was a left to right wind, keeping the backhand shots going straighter, even if thrown with an overstable disc.
Niklas drawing it up, just as you stated, Elias, straight flying with a small finish to the left and keeping well safe from that OB. Very nice line from Niklas. We'll see Väinö now.
Väinö actually with a mid-range here. And you can see the wind is just pushing it to the right, not quite letting the disc finish. I'm pretty surprised that Väinö went with a mid-range there, even in this strong left to right wind.
Mikael playing with a lot more width and releasing it almost flat, but you see the overstability of that late fading disc into that wind, left to right. He also looks like he's got himself with a decent putt, although quite a scary looking line out of the hand. Fought back nicely. Teemu now.
Teemu also with, I believe, an overstable fairway driver, pushing the width on the right side, but able to find the fairway. I believe that's the best looking shot of the group. Still ending up on the right side, so that wind being very strong right now.
Väinö up first to putt with a slight head to crosswind and a beautiful commanding putt there into the chains. Very central on the pole as he secures his second birdie of the round, 2 down through 4.
Yeah, that's a decent pace through 4. You might want to be even better, as we see Mikael getting the first birdie of the round for him. There's a lot of players that are gonna be 2, 3, even 4 down after the first 4. But Niklas here, not able to move to 3 under. Surprising miss from well inside the circle there.
And Teemu with a nice bounce back after his bogey on hole 3. Always great to see, and that goes a long way for the player, getting that confidence back. Niklas securing the par. The lone pars, the other 3 players each catch a stroke on him. Väinö even catching up to that 2 under score.
moving on to one of the shortest holes on the course. Might actually be the shortest one, only at 75 meters. You have these two mandos at the very beginning of the fairway to keep people from going a hyzer around the outside of this tunnel. The tunnel is relatively tight, but definitely not too tight to be pretty easy to hit for this level of players. What really makes this hole challenging is that you have to keep your disc going low, but even after the tunnel you need to progress forward about 20 meters. And there's going to be a headwind on this one, so watch out for the stability of your disc.
A pure tunnel shot and a pure shape by Väinö, just a little bit too high. He doesn't get the full distance, but a great shot regardless, right up there in the circle. Exactly how you want to do it. That headwind potentially lifting the disc. We see Mikael now.
And that's a bit of a weird release from him. You can see the wind also taking the disc to the right. It's one of the windier holes, and particularly one of the windier greens on the course. So I believe Teemu here, going with something pretty stable, gets it to fly straight, and that's just a perfect shot there. Beautiful angle control, able to land the disc flat, which is so difficult in this headwind.
Interesting to see Niklas with the short walk up, but great throw there. Not much distance required, potentially helping to align his body and his shot with the tunnel. Whereas we saw Väinö, for example, go into that patented standstill that he's so skilled with. Mikael here, looking to shape a soft anhyzer up to the green. And that'll do. Looks like he kicked a stick on the green out of the way to slow him down, but great result. So we'll move to the putts now. Väinö up first for birdie.
Just 5 meters here. Well done from Väinö. Going with that bit of a pitch putt motion that he's adapted to his game in the past couple of years. Everybody else here also just outside the bullseye. You can see that wind kicking in, even with the elevated basket. Some of these shorter putts are still not super easy on this one.
Niklas finding his birdie there as well. That very short putt that he left himself with after missing putts on both holes 3 and 4. Able to once again jump back to the birdies on hole 5. Teemu as well, absolutely parked, just able to tap it in.
And now we're starting the next stretch on the course. Especially as far as difficulty, it's a par 5. 289 meters. On the first shot you want to just land on the fairway. You don't need a lot of distance on this hole unless you're going for the eagle, which I believe almost none of the players are. You need to be on the fairway on your first, then throw your hyzer to the thinner part of the fairway, leaving yourself with an over the OB shot about 80 meters, even a little bit shorter if you're way down the fairway. And this green, which is pretty difficult and completely surrounded by OB on each side besides the left. Also a bit of a sloping green, so this hole brings in difficulty with multiple different elements.
Absolutely. With so many throws required to get to the green, as well as the putting coming into play, a lot of different variations needing to be executed well in order to find the birdie. This is the first hole averaging over par for the MPO field. We'll see how well our feature card is able to attack here. Good shot by Väinö, as you mentioned, just wanting to get in the fairway.
And Teemu here also with a good shot, getting well over that OB on the right. Really anything on the fairway is just fine. It's more about the second shot. If you're on the fairway on your first, it's more about the setup on the second shot.
And Niklas right center fairway. Mikael.
This hole is also playing into a bit of a headwind, actually a pretty strong headwind, so might also contribute to why many of these players are going with a safe, overstable shot. Mikael, not a safe looking one, but still in the fairway. And everybody just looking to play that safe hyzer. You need to push this one kind of towards the backside trees, because the OB on the left side does come into play if you're not pushing the backside trees. You can see Mikael here perfectly on the middle or on the right side, opening up mostly a straight shot to the green.
Yeah, being on the left side fairway off the tee, he had pinched off his angle into that entrance a little bit, but very well executed shot to put himself back into center fairway. We see Teemu really trying to push the distance here, as well as that back tree line, and he's done just that. Great execution.
Perfect shot from Teemu, and he's gonna have a relatively short approach from there. If you throw two good shots on the fairway, you never have more than 90 meters to the fairway, or to the basket, excuse me. But if you can push it like Teemu, that's even better. And Niklas there gonna have a bit of a longer approach, similar to Mikael, but still well within the good area to land.
Väinö in a very nice place off his drive. Doesn't need to swing a huge hyzer, can push this one a little bit straighter, but still getting good distance around the corner. And you see that that's resulted in him getting right up there, pushing a little bit towards that left side OB that you touched on, Elias. Maybe having that more straight looking option sort of brought that more into play, whereas the other players were pushing that back tree line more naturally. We'll see these guys throw over OB to the green now. Niklas up first, shaping a soft flex. That'll leave him at just about within the circle.
And that's gonna be a scary putt, going right towards OB. Mikael actually here flying over the fairway for the unconventional forehand route. Almost nobody do you see going for that route instead of this straight to hyzering shot. Väinö actually has a full hyzer angle from here because he's closer to the left side, going with that PA3. Very soft looking shot here, and he's actually found the short OB. What a huge mistake from Väinö. That is pretty much the only mistake you cannot do on this hole, to leave it short.
And Teemu, having seen that, makes the adjustment, although still just sneaking over that early OB line. We see how much Väinö is left with now. A touchy low-speed shot, but this is bleeding away from the basket. And he's just right outside where Niklas's disc lies. As you mentioned, not a comfortable putt. Still will test him. This is Mikael's lie from his forehand. And as he pitches up, he's just playing for par here. Not too happy with it, but given the circumstances, will be looking for the 5. Väinö unable to find that putt.
And Väinö with a bit of a soft run there, not quite going for the regular fast spin putt that he has. But Niklas here, very confident putt there. Going 4 under through 6, that's a good start, but also a start that many players in the field are going to acquire. And most of the differences are going to be made after some of these easier holes at the beginning. This one, I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong, Connor, but probably not playing super easy for the field, as it has potential to get big numbers. I saw at least a couple of 10s on the hole on scorecards of various players.
Absolutely. This one averaging 5.62 as a par 5 was the hole with the most double bogeys and above by far. So playing as the most dangerous hole, they move past that onto hole 7.
And talking about dangerous, a lot of danger on this one. The shot shape and distance itself is pretty simple. It's just a 120 meter. You can go straight, you can go hyzer. Most people or most players on the field are going to go for that slight hyzer towards the 2 right side birches. They are a great aiming point. If you can just barely fade before those 2 birches, you're almost always on the putting green. But there is 2 OB bunkers short, both left and right of the basket, and that OB long, just inside the circle on this hole.
Unfortunately, finding that OB for Teemu there, you see the narrowing of the entrance to the green requires a great precision. We'll see if Niklas can find that clean entry.
Also a little bit inside, but gets a great flip up on the disc. Needs to go around the bunker as he does. Very good shot. Looked like a bit of an early release, but the disc choice of going understable would suggest that that was the shot that he was going for.
And I liked his use of height there to mitigate fading too much to the left, keeping it low and straight. Mikael playing the wide swinging hyzer did exactly that, used the height in a different way, but not enough width or power to push it all the way to the green. Also finds himself in that early left bunker. Väinö with a very late release out of the hand.
And he has ended up, looks like he's ended up OB on the right side, which is a pretty big mistake. Once again, Väinö really needs to get his game together right now. These are still some of the more scoreable holes on the course. At least some of the more birdieable ones, even though this one has great bogey potential. But that's a good approach there. Gonna stop the bleeding and go to the next hole with likely an even par score for the round.
We see Mikael here for a chance at the par save. Just touching the band. A good bid. Teemu now with a similar opportunity for his 3.
Really nice run there. You can see Teemu also going a little bit softer because it is sloping away towards that long side OB behind the basket. And Niklas here, well in the circle, just 6 meters left. Should be an easy birdie as it is. Niklas going 5 under through 7, even with that single inside the circle miss on hole 4. So his driving is almost perfect right now.
Väinö there, securing his bogey after the early OB to the right. Pretty much best case scenario from where he crossed, as it was not a reasonable putting range. Taking 2 bogeys in a row on 6 and 7. Showing exactly why those are the first 2 holes to average over par. An interesting note here about hole 7. An almost equal percentage between birdie, par, and bogey, all sitting at roughly 33%.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting stat, but I could see how that happens on this one. As we're moving to hole 8, this is a true distance test, 129 meters up the hill. It's actually going 11 meters upwards, so the distance probably playing closer to 150 or even 160. Very few players in the field even able to reach this hole in one. Most players are looking to throw that flat to slightly turning shot, trying to just get as far up there as possible. Most good shots landing on the edge of circle 1 or even a little bit shorter.
Niklas now has separated himself a little bit from the feature card, sitting at 5 under through the first 7 holes. Playing the understability, he gets a soft hyzer release out the left side, looking to turn it over. Fades out a touch early, but looks like he's got great distance up the hill and maybe even looking at a long putt.
Yep. Pretty risky gap for Niklas. You see most players going for the bigger right side gap. But Teemu also actually going for the straight gap, which is ideal for distance. You can get more turn out of that gap. But Teemu also fading out a little bit early. Both Niklas and Teemu are going to be in that circle 2 range that we so often see players at. As I said, very difficult hole to get into the circle. Let's see, Mikael here. Going for the same gap, but also fading out early.
I can understand leaning on some understability to try and push the distance as far as possible, but if you do not have the right hyzer angle, especially slightly nose up trying to battle the altitude, hyzering out early can leave you with a difficult position. We see Väinö here, opting for that larger right side gap that you mentioned, Elias, and firing straight through all the trees, has a great distance up the hill, and will have a putt laterally across it. Nicely done.
Yeah, Väinö probably being the biggest thrower on the card as far as distance, so understandable that he went for the hyzer route. Mikael here, tough scramble shot and hits one of the first trees available. Gonna most likely have to settle for a bogey since it's still almost 20 meters and way up the hill from there.
And you see him actually just leave his bag where it was, grab his mini and pick up the exact disc he just threw. Good to see him taking a moment here, thinking about his line, clearing his throwing stroke. Very easy to rush this second shot after hitting an early tree. Oh, and even trying to put that one in. A difficult way to find the bogey there, but good comeback after the fact.
Niklas from circle 2 here. I believe what tells about the difficulty of this hole really well is that 47% of the field was in circle 2, but only 3% was in circle 1. Just telling the fact that it's insanely difficult to reach this one. As Väinö here, also from a borderline good drive, still putting from well within the circle 2.
Has a look across the hill and able to give it a chance, but ensuring to keep it close. Very few birdies here. 3 is a completely fine score to take on 8, although I'm sure all of these players wanting to give it a chance if they have the opportunity. And Teemu with just that opportunity there, catching left side cage. He's also been throwing the disc pretty well, but just finding some difficulties on the putting green so far here in round 1. And Väinö securing the pretty stress-free 3.
Very common score on this one, I would assume, as green doesn't really have much danger on it. The only danger is the short side, and most everybody is putting from the short side. So a lot of tapping 3s on this one. Niklas here also taking his time on that short one. Important. I'm sure this is one of the most important tournaments to everybody on the card, of course, but especially Niklas trying to defend his title from last year. One of the most difficult things to do in disc golf, defend your title back-to-back years.
And he's been performing great internationally, and this is his opportunity to perform great nationally and secure his second championship in a row. We move to hole 9.
And hole 9. What a tricky hole this is. It's a super far left to right moving shot. You almost have to fly backwards and to the right at the end of the flight. Really the only shot that can reach the hole with going through the fairway and not through the woods is a super high turnover shot with either an understable mid-range or an understable putter. It's a very tricky shot, and this is another hole that is super difficult to get into circle 1. Most birdies coming from circle 2 on this one.
Niklas shaping that high turnover, but pretty much blind through the tunnel from the tee. What looked to be a great line just caught along some branches. Looks to have left himself probably still about 40 or 50 to the basket, if not a little bit more. You'll see Teemu now try to make that adjustment.
Very nice looking line here, and look at him flying on the fairway. Wow, inside circle 1 there. What a great result. And one of the cleanest shots I've seen on the hole. Most birdies that end up in circle 1 fly through the woods some way or another, but Teemu there able to stay on the fairway for the entire flight.
And a beautiful view from that catch cam angle as we see Väinö here also battling all the way up to the green and in fact firing a little bit long. Amazing angle control to pierce through that long tunnel and find themselves on the green. Just a beautiful dissection of this very narrow tunnel.
And Mikael here, even with being a strong forehand player, going for the backhand just to get the strong left to right movement. And that's another great shot, barely inside the circle. 3 incredible shots from the card. Only 8% of the field able to get to circle 1 on this one. And 3 of them on our card. So that's a great result. And Niklas here, just a routine approach through the woods.
And finding another tree that will leave him with a long tester putt from about circle's edge. This is for par and to remain bogey free. A tricky putt, we see the flag swirling. And just to the right side, you heard him just tickle those chains. Not enough to grab them. Niklas looking to play for bogey now. This is Mikael for his birdie chance to put himself back to even.
Not quite there. Mikael, usually being known as a very strong circle 1 putter, he has that soft putting stroke, softer than mostly everybody on the field. An unfortunate miss there. Niklas here still further away than both Väinö and Teemu after their drives. Niklas putting for a 4 now.
And he's low left side. Still unable to find his disc in the chains. We move to Väinö now for the elusive birdie. And very confident right into the pole, where you'll see a huge stroke swing between these guys playing for 2 and 3, as well as Niklas now, unfortunately, looking at a double bogey. We see Teemu with his chance for the 2. Only 13% of the field able to find the birdie. We've already seen one from Väinö, potentially another now from Teemu.
This would be a great birdie to end his front 9 on a strong note. And he does it. Teemu also going to tie Niklas after Niklas's double bogey is gonna put his score back to 3 under, which is still a very respectable front 9. It's a tough course, although the front 9 is definitely the 9 that is easier, with all of the easier holes at the start of the round.
And as we take a look at the standings, we see just that, a scoreable front 9 attacked by the entire field. Emi Pansari, 7 under, solo lead position. We see Miro Ruhanen tied with Puru Jotsen, Kasperi Pakarinen, Oskari Wikström at 5 under, and a bunch of players tied for 6th at 4 under. Of course, the field is still very close here at Mukkula Disc Golf Park, the front 9 in the books. Some great performances, and you can see a little bit of difficulty given the wind and the tricky course.
Yep, we're gonna move to the arguably more difficult, more windy, very OB filled, challenging back 9. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Connor, for doing this commentary with me. If you want to support MDG, you can support them on Patreon or just on YouTube by liking and subscribing. Thank you for watching and see you guys on the back 9.